Yeah, Maggie, there are 1,412 pairs of shoes out here right now. Each pair represents a life lost on the roads in North Carolina last year. Now, organizers of this event are hoping that this visual aid will remind people that this is a public health crisis, and we can all do more to prevent crashes like these. More than 1,000 pairs of shoes, but it's this pair of white tennis shoes that reminds Andy Potcotter of his father.
It's one of those things that I never really came to terms with, I guess. It has had a major effect on my life.
When Potcotter was 14 years old, he was headed to the orthodontist with his father when an 18-wheeler hit them from behind. Potcotter suffered a concussion and woke up in the hospital, but his father didn't make it.
I was always kind of a scared kid, especially scared of, losing my parents. When it actually did happen, it was one of those things where I was kind of no emotional reaction whatsoever, because that's the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Potcotter's loss inspired him to work for an organization dedicated to eliminating traffic deaths and injuries. He's a graphic designer for NC Vision Zero.
It's absurd that our society, our advanced society, that we still have, scores of people dying by the day just getting around.
Members of Vision Zero are challenging drivers to do better and to realize anytime you're in a car, your life is at risk.
We really want people to reach out to everyone that they know, encourage them to buckle up, to follow the speed limit, to only drive sober and alert, and to keep their eyes on the road, hands on the wheel, and their mind on driving.
Now, I also want to point out that the holidays are one of the deadliest times for drivers, and with Thanksgiving just a few days away, organizers want to remind people to not get behind the wheel if you've been drinking or if you haven't had enough sleep. For now, reporting live in Raleigh, I'm Kelly Kennedy for CBS 17 News.
I'm living on the edge of salvation.
Creative, charming, memorable character.
62-year-old David Aboud was passionate about music. He loved woodworking, and he loved his family.
Walking along the road under Van Dorp Springs Bridge and getting hit from behind at night. He had his guitar with him. He was a musician. And yeah, that was pretty shocking.
The father of three died in May after a car hit him from behind while he was walking along U.S. Highway 70 and Van Dorp Springs Road. The driver took off, and Garner police still have not found the person responsible.
There hasn't been a lot of clues since.
Police released a photo of the front grille of the car believed to be involved, as well as surveillance video taken just after the crash. Investigators are looking for a light-colored 2005 to 2010 Chrysler 300.
Hoping that people maybe in May knew somebody with a type of car like that, then stopped seeing them with that car.
Do you have a message for the person responsible for killing your brother?
Can't bring him back. You can't run from this. You may not be dealt with here, but there will be recourse.
The family will celebrate David's life this weekend at the Triangle Lebanese American Center in Raleigh. Peter says his brother knew how to make an impression, so he expects it to be a full house.
I'm living on the edge of salvation.
Kelly Kennedy, CBS 17 News. Chris Peterson has spent the past 32 Christmas Eves delivering the mail. He was hoping to get off early to spend time with his family.
And I believe there was a reason that I was running late that day. I was meant to be there.
Peterson had just finished delivering the mail to Mike and Pam Hodgen's house in Cary.
He was walking away from their house when his wife called out the door, "Somebody please help me, I believe my husband is having a heart attack."
Peterson did not hesitate. He ran up the stairs and into the house. Two of the neighbors from right across the street were right behind him.
We found him laid on his back on the kitchen floor, and he had no pulse. So at that time, I instantly began chest compressions.
Joni called 911 and helped keep his wife calm.
She kept calling for her husband, and we were seeing nothing.
After about 2 minutes of compressions, Mike Hodgen took a deep breath and opened his eyes.
It was just a feeling of relief.
And as soon as their neighbor was stable and paramedics had taken him to the hospital, Chris Peterson went right back to work, delivering the mail.
Pam, the wife, was like, it's like Superman. But I'm like, well, he was like a cowboy to me, just like riding off into the sunset, because he just calmly walks away and does his job.
And after that, Joni and Jason watched in amazement as paramedics helped clean up the Hodgins kitchen.
He's putting it back in the fridge and getting the knives and wiping down the counters. And that's the part of my thing I was like, our mail carrier just saved a life, and the rescue guys are cleaning up the kitchen.
Chris Peterson wants to encourage everyone to add CPR training to their list of New Year's resolutions.
If Chris hadn't taken the quick action that he did, Mike wouldn't be here today.
Hodgin is still in the hospital, but is expected to come home tomorrow. In Cary, Kelly Kennedy, CBS 17 News. When we have the flu, we all know to cover our cough. We know to stay home so we don't spread the sickness to others.
I think that most people don't think of suicide as being the kind of public health issue that the flu is.
Some mental health professionals like Vaughn Crawford say suicide can be just as contagious as the common cold.
Suicide contagion is when the way in which we talk about and address suicide either helps or hurts the spread of suicide.
On June 5th, fashion designer Kate Spade committed suicide. Just 3 days later, celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain took his own life.
People who might already be struggling can look at celebrities, especially who have money and fame and things in theory that we all want. And if they are not happy or they don't have hope, even with all of those things, then sort of your regular everyday person can go, well, then why am I here?
A study found there was a nearly 10% increase in suicides in the U.S. in the months following comedian Robin Williams' suicide. But talking about suicide is not always a bad thing. In fact, media coverage of suicide can also inspire people to seek help. The North Carolina Suicide Prevention Lifeline says the day after Spade's death, they received 333 calls. On the day after Bourdain's death, they received 467 calls. On a typical day, they get about 255.
One of the things that is really critical is making sure it's not sensationalized. We don't want to talk about the means by which somebody did it. We don't want to guess about motives.
I've experienced the power of suicide contagion firsthand. My best friend Stephanie Goot made a joke about Kate Spade's death. 3 weeks later, Stephanie took her own life. To my surprise, Crawford says this is not uncommon.
I think that people often test out a conversation with their friends or their peers or their loved ones about suicide, and almost as a little bit of a cry for attention.
Crawford's been touched by suicide too. Before she was even born, her grandfather took his own life. It's the reason she became an advocate for suicide prevention.
This necklace was given to my grandmother by my grandfather, and she passed it to me. It's definitely something that when I'm doing a lot of advocacy around suicide contagion, it's something that I wear as a reminder.
In all of Crawford's years researching suicide and interviewing survivors, there's one thing in particular that really resonated with her.
Every single person who has survived a jump off the Golden Gate Bridge has expressed immediate regret as soon as they started to fall. We are pretty sure that the vast majority of people who follow through and die by suicide, that's not the way they wanted their lives to end.